The topic of the webinar is the importance of astrology in human design. Let me tell you a little bit about my own background because it includes quite a bit of astrology. I was originally trained as a social scientist at University of Chicago. And my PhD was in psychology, anthropology, sociology, and biology. And I did a postdoc and got licensed as a clinical psychologist. And then I started having dreams about knowing with a K. And I started my Jungian analytic training. And I began meditating and began having Kundalini experiences or direct experiences of God. And I didn't know what was happening to me. And some of you may have experiences like that, experiences of energy where you don't know what to do with it. So I started getting very interested in esoteric disciplines, and I was told that astrology was the most scientific of the esoteric disciplines. It was 1971. There were no astrology programs. So I got some books. I lived in Chicago. There was one astrologer. Her name was Catherine de Jersey. And she had a waiting list and nobody could get in to see her. So I got books and I started studying and I learned how to do charts. And I thought, this is the hardest thing I've ever tried to study. And then, as God's hand would do, I divorced my husband, and my lawyer had Catherine de Jersey as a client. So he said to me, oh, if you want to get in to see her, I'll get you in. It took me about 6 months, and I got in to see Catherine, and it changed my life. She told me I would move from Chicago. I told her she was crazy. She also told me the day and time I met my husband, and we met at an ashram in India because the voice told me to go to the ashram, although I had no interest in it. But I went. And we met. We've been together since the day we met 46 years ago. In any case, meeting Catherine and learning the real science of astrology. And in order to learn her secrets, I studied astrology for about 10 years, very intensively. The same time I was studying the Tree of Life. So what I bring to human design is that whole background that is the synthesis of human design. And then in 1999, Ra asked my husband and me to validate the science of design. And he asked us to separate ourselves from the human design community and focus on professionals and focus on really validating the work, not just statistically, but also clinically. So I am now in the process of publishing several of the books I wrote with Ra because they're source material, and I've edited them and added some commentary. But it is important, I think, for the human design community to integrate the fields that were the synthesis. So in my work, I integrate the Tree of Life with the human design system, and I've expanded it. But for today, we're going to focus on why astrology is so important in the interpretation that you bring to your work in human design. So Feel free if you have questions. I'm going to share a document so you can have some nice graphics. And I've also prepared a handout for you with sort of a cheat sheet so you can refer to it when you're looking at your design charts and begin to get some keywords and a little bit more flavor to the meaning behind the hexagrams. So the topic is the importance of astrology and human design. This is the mandala. So I've sketched it out for those of you who may not be that well versed in it, but at the center, and this is what I originally saw when I was introduced to human design. I saw this graphic in black and white in the Mountain Astrologer magazine. And I said, oh, I know what that is. That's the tree of life at the center. It's astrology around the sides. And in my wheel, I have them color-coded for the astrological sign as it is delineated in the Kabbalistic tree of life. Because as Ross said, this is a synthesis of the tree of life, which is basically the structure, the astrology that goes around the wheel, and you can see the astrological signs: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. In the outer wheel, we have the numbers of the hexagrams of the I Ching. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, that the sequence of the hexagrams around the wheel follow a very specific pattern of yin and yang. And that is something I know I puzzled over it. I asked Ra about it. And then when I taught a class on the patterns of orientation or the crosses, I actually took the time to figure out what that sequence was. And at some point, that's something that can be shared, but know that there is an actual layout that goes around with the hexagrams. And so we have the astrology signs coded into the Bodygraph. We have the I Ching hexagrams, and the colors around the wheel are the colors of the centers in the Bodygraph. So you would immediately know that red is either the heart center or the sacral center. You would know that yellow is located in the crown or the self center. So there's a lot of coding in this mandala. And then I uncolored it so that you could actually see the hexagrams a little better. Now, in the Bodygraph, each gate is a specific energy based on the hexagram and the astrology. There are 64 active energy gates in the Bodygraph, 36 channels. Each gate corresponds to an astrological degree. And that's what makes it so important to know, because each astrological sign And each degree of an astrological sign has a different feeling to it. So something, for example, that would be 0 to 2 degrees of an astrological sign would be much more of that sign than if it's in the later degrees of that sign. And that's something you come to learn. And then when you integrate it into the body map, you have, it's like having great seasoning and many different flavors that are subtle within that gate. Each gate also corresponds to a hexagram I Ching. The gate is either turned on or off based on whether a planet activated it. So the whole basis of what we put into the body graph is astrologically based. Because each planet holds a specific position related to you at specific times and the place you were born, it activates a specific position in the body graph. And there, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Each gate is part of a channel, and they stay in the same place in the body graph, but they can turn on and off based on the energy. I laid out in a chart for you the hexagrams and their astrological sign. I thought this might be important for you to see and know, because we're not really taught that much in the human design training. But as a sign like Scorpio has a very intense energy, and it's also associated with a planetary, a zodiac house, and that has meaning. So what you're going to be bringing to your readings, if you integrate astrology, is not only what you've learned about the hexagrams, where they are in the body graph, what the energy of that center is, how it functions, and whether it's defined or not defined, but then you bring the flavor of the astrology to it. Is it an intense energy or is it a gentle energy? Is it a watery energy or is it a fiery energy? And when you begin to have that astrological nuance added into the hexagrams, it brings a great richness to what you're looking at and what you're thinking about. So this is Ra's chart, and I did this in the Bodygraph astrology program that is about to be released. So I want to, what the Bodygraph is showing you, and I think most of you know what it is, the planetary glyphs, and this one has Lilith in it, which I don't usually use, but it's there. And we have a design side, which is 3 months roughly before birth, 88 degrees. Now, see, when we say it's 88 degrees before birth, that's astrology. In astrology, as an astrologer, when I learned to do a chart, I learned to also look back 3 months and forward 3 months for the timing and the energy that would be integrated into that person. So in Ra's chart, what you can see is that much of his definition is coming from the personality side of his body map. Look at that. It's coming from all of these gold-colored planets, which is personality. So he has the 51-25. And I'll go through this with you just so you see it in a bigger position. But then I have the astrology to show you, and I'll show you them side by side. So here we have his heart center, or he would say his, where's my mouse? His ego center, connecting to the self, connecting through the roll gate, through the 10, to the 57, the 20, and then also activating the 48. So Ra is an ego manifester with no sacral center. He also doesn't have the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, or the crown activated. He has a strong splenic center, and he does have the ajna to the throat on the unconscious side. So what that says to me is Ra was channeling, not just from other dimensions, but from people who were in his energy field. Go to the next slide, if I can. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I may not be. Let's see what I did here. I should be able to scroll. There we go. Okay, this is the one I wanted. Here is out of the Bodygraph program, which I'll show you later. Here's Ra's chart as you just saw it, and then his astrology chart right next to it. Now, one of the things to note, with some highlight to it, is that in the human design charts, we do not use the ascendant. We use a Aries wheel. So the time that a person is born is not as significant in the human design chart as it is in a birth chart when we use the ascendant, their rising sign. And usually when I do somebody's chart for a reading, I do the human design chart, but I also use their astrology chart, and I do use the ascendant. Because if you're going to look for timing in a person's life, you want the ascendant to show you where things are and which house they're in astrologically. So what's really of great interest that you can immediately see in the astrology chart is that Ra's sun and his moon are within 4 degrees of each other. His sun was 19 degrees of Aries in 51.5, and his moon was 15 degrees, 25 minutes of Aries in 51.1. that means that, Ra used to joke in his lectures about having the 51 and always wanting to be first. But think about it. He not only has his sun in the 51, he also has his moon in the 51. Ra was born on a new moon. Of course he wants to be first. If any of you need clarification on that, let me know. But what I'm showing you is that if you just look at the sun this way, if you just look at the hexagrams and you don't know the astrology, you wouldn't know that he was born on a full moon, on a new moon. And that a new moon is like a new beginning. And the fact that there are two planets activating that one gate in his heart center, that is the initiating energy of his manifesting potential. That's pretty strong. I never noticed that in Ra's chart before. Now look in his chart also that Mars, Saturn, and Pluto are all in the sign of Leo in his 5th house. As we go, you'll see what the different houses mean. And I'll come back to this because you'll go, oh, that explains him. And I love when that happens. Okay, so here's the astrological wheel. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with astrology or not, so I kept this very basic. But this is the astrology wheel. Each sign, like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, has a house of the 12 houses astrologically where it is most comfortable. And that's the sign of that house. And it has a planet that rules it. So I've laid that out for you. So the Aries has the glyph of Mars. It's telling you that Aries is a fiery, initiating energy. Then we get to Taurus in the 2nd house. Now, each house also has a meaning. So the 1st house, and I have another chart for you with what the houses are, so that you can begin to look at the astrology with your human design charts. And you can toggle between the two in the program, and I'll show you how. And you can begin to add the dimension of astrology to the meaning of the hexagram. And so the houses make a difference. The 1st house is personality, what you lead with to the world. The 2nd house is money and resources, self-esteem, self-worth, and financial resources. The 3rd house is Gemini, communication. It's Mercury. Mercury is communication. The placement of Mercury in your astrological wheel, whether it's before your sun or after your sun, makes a difference in how you think. So that might be something to look for as a nuance in your body graph. 4th house is the moon, Cancer. That makes sense. Cancer is the crab. It's a homebody. So when you begin to add the meaning of the astrology to the actual hexagrams in that sign, you get a whole other dimension of meaning than what the hexagram itself describes. The sun is Leo in the house 5. Leo is a very strong, fiery energy. I identify it as the mental world. Taurus, I identify as the physical world. Scorpio, I identify as spirit, and Aquarius, Scorpio as emotional, angelic, and Aquarius as spiritual. Virgo rules the 6th house. Now notice Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini. Both of them are what we call mutable signs. They change. They're changeable. Gemini is an air sign, and Virgo is an earth sign. So think about what would happen to Mercury. Communication and thinking and traveling if it's grounded in Virgo. In one case, you have things wanting to be organized, things wanting to be stable and grounded. And on the other hand, you have Mercury wanting to be airy and free. So if you're looking at somebody's chart, you want to know which it is. Which Mercury is it? Is it a Virgo or is it a Gemini? Then we get to Venus, which rules Taurus in the 2nd house, physical body, and also the 7th house, which rules relationships and partnerships, legal partnerships. Libra is balance. Think about the connection between the physical body in Taurus, Earth, and in Venus, air, and relationships. If you don't have a good plan of self-care, what can you say about your relationship with yourself and your body? I'm trying to tie the threads of the astrological wheel together for you, and then bring it in to how you can use it in your human design chart. Okay, then we go to the 8th house. The 8th house is going to be interesting for many of you because the 8th house is regeneration, rebirth, psychic ability, and Pluto rules transformation. It's also the house of sex and regeneration, and its sign is Scorpio. My moon is in Scorpio, and what the great astrologer Catherine de Jersey told me about Scorpio is, what she said to me is, well, dear, Scorpios feel things very intensively. Don't expect that everyone is going to understand the depth of the feeling of a Scorpio. And I've remembered that, not just because I have a Scorpio moon, but because when somebody does have a Scorpio in their chart, there is an intensity. And telling them that can be very reassuring, that they sometimes go to a depth that not everybody can understand, and that's okay. Pluto is transformation. Right now, transiting Pluto is edging into Aquarius. So we're going through a huge shift since Pluto went into Capricorn in around 2000 or 2002. I wrote a paper on Pluto when it went into Capricorn. So I will republish that paper and release it. And then I'll write one on the difference with Pluto and Aquarius. Think about the kind of transformations over the last 20 years and how grounded and earthly bound they've been. And think now about soaring to new heights and opening our consciousness in new ways. And having faith in humanity to do the right thing for the planet. That's what Aquarius, in Pluto and Aquarius, should bring. Now, Jupiter in the 9th house is expansive. And notice that the planetary body I also added is Chiron. Chiron acts a lot like Jupiter in Sagittarius. It's a healing planet. It's a healing house. It is the house of superconsciousness, higher consciousness, values, religion, ethics, integrity. It's a very expansive, very loving, spiritual house. It's also, if you do astrology, it's the house where if you see something transiting, it might be a long-term move. And it's longer-term travel. So if somebody's getting ready to move homes, it might show up in the 9th house. 10th house is Saturn. Some people think Saturn is bad. I don't think Saturn's bad. I like Saturn. Saturn is the authority. Saturn is what you bring in front of the public, what you're proud of, what you feel competent in. And it's what you bring to the public as a public being. Capricorn is grounded. It's responsible. It's police. You know, it's the caretaker, the father, if you will. Some people think that Saturn is limitation. It functions more in the mental world than some of the other planets do. But it is really about making sense of the world and manifesting in the world in a way that that's empowering. And all of us are designed to reach our full potential. So that's a statistic that I have and that we've confirmed. And just trust that you are designed to manifest your full potential. Regardless of the definitions in your design, if you're alive, you're functioning with all 64 gates and all the matrices and all the worlds. And your consciousness is much bigger than you think it is. Okay. Aquarius. Planet that rules Aquarius in the 11th house is Uranus. Now, Aquarius is an air sign. I identify it as the spiritual core of our being. And it is about community. It's about the fellowship of man. It's about living in peace and harmony and love with our fellow humans. So when you look at Uranus and Aquarius in the body map, it's a slow-moving planet. Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are all slow-moving planets. They're generational. They're not personal. So they have more to do when you look at them in your chart with what you're here to bring as a consciousness or as in service to humanity than as a personality. So you read those planets in a body map and in an astrology chart differently than you read the personal planets. Neptune rules Pisces. Pisces is a watery planet, and Neptune is a little bit foggy. And the 12th house in astrology is hidden. It's what's behind the scenes, what's in the unconscious. So Neptune in a body map can show openness. It can show compassion. It can show sensitivity. And you want to bring that to whatever hexagram it's in. And remember, the slow-moving planets are generational. So they bring energy to you, but not so much personally as transpersonally. I'll go to the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to give you these. So you have a cheat sheet. And these are also in my astrology book, which there's a link at the back of the handout, but I have a book on astrology. And I also have a book called Cosmic Secrets on my Bodygraph work. But in any case, if you just go around and look at where the, when you do an astrology chart, and I'm going to, I'll go through these slides, and then I want to go to the Bodygraph program and show you what to do, because I think it's going to be useful for you to use the ascendant when you do the chart, rather than the Aries wheel that mirrors the Bodygraph, because otherwise you won't be able to get the nuance of which house is being activated by which planets. I'm going to play around with doing the ascendant in the Bodygraph and see what changes. So I gave you keywords to use here. So like the 9th house, and it's color-coded. And you have, there are 3 qualities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable, which means strong leading planet for a quadrant of the astrological house, or it's in the middle and it's sort of fixed. So the fixed signs are more stubborn. The mutable signs are more changeable. And the cardinal are more leadership, setting the tone for that whole quadrant. And we have personality, we have inner self and creativity and work, relationships, and how you present yourself to the public. So you'll get this, and you can use those keywords when you do an astrology chart. And then I have more charts for you so you can see and begin to use some of these keywords so you begin to seed your brain with astrological meanings as well as hexagram meanings. And then bring the keywords, and I color code everything. So this one is color coded, it looks like, to the sign, but the colors are not precise. And then this is the slow-moving planets. And then here again is the planetary wheel with its ruling planet. And then I left this in. These are the keywords and the hexagrams for the self-center. And then I also broke it down to the signs and the names of the trigrams and what it does. So it's a very interesting study, and I'm not going to give you this as part of your handout, but I thought it was something that you might find interesting to see and begin thinking about. These are in my Cosmic Secrets books. Here's a link to all my books. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift gears. I'll stop the share. This is the Bodygraph program, and they've added a astrology program. And you can switch between astrology and human design.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get two on a page, which is why I cut and pasted so you could see the two of them. But I want you to notice here again that Ra has the conjunction between the sun and the moon. And it's nice that the colors show his design so clearly. I like that you can move back and forth, and you can also take some actions like hiding personal details, editing the birth date, and you can get you can hide Chiron. I hid Lilith because I don't really use it. And you can get a mandala. Now, it's nice when you get this mandala that you see the astrology in the wheel. And it would be a little bit nicer, actually, if we colored the gates or the gates with the planet color, because then you could immediately see where the astrology was in the body graph. So there's the mandala, and then you can get the transit. So I did it is the transit for right now. And I thought it would be interesting to do my chart with the transit. Where was it here?
No, go back to
Traditional astrology.
go to human design.
Yeah, where did it disappear?
Switch to human design.
Yeah. Okay, and then I'll go to the transit. And I thought it would be interesting to see how today, when I'm doing this class, impacted my body graph. And what was so interesting to me in the astrology chart was that my moon is 3 degrees of Scorpio, and there's quite a bit right on my moon today. And look at how now this is just the human design chart, so it's a piece, but it shows you that I'm speaking and I'm talking about what I know, what I've studied. It doesn't quite show the sacral and the self center, which I would guess in my composite or in my integrated chart are defined, but it shows the openness. And when I do any kind of class, I'm always channeling because I speak best spontaneously and not if it's too rehearsed. Notice also that the 6th gate is activated. Now, I always have the 6th gate, but it doesn't usually go anywhere. And today it goes up through the throat and it connects with my 58, 18, 48, 16 that I have in every chart, no matter what. And the 6th hexagram is emotional reactivity in the emotional matrix. And it is here for us to transform it. A lot of my time today has been spent transforming emotional energy for people, which is very interesting, given that it was then going through the solar plexus, and I'm thinking about how to help people and how to communicate with them. So the program is a nice program. There will be reports. I think they're coming, and there'll be more actions, I'm sure. It's nice that you can export to a PDF. And I haven't used the program a whole lot, but I've used it and it's really works well. Thank you, Algus. Any other questions? We have about 5-6 minutes. Irene?
Oh, sorry.
Hi. I just wonder, the program you just showed, is it an app in itself, or can you find it in the on the website?
I don't
Because I
think it's
haven't.
released yet.
Okay, so it's to be released. I understand.
Right.
Sorry, I will correct. This is released, and you can find it. It's named Generate Chart Tool on our website.
I'm
So
sorry?
it's already published. It's live, and you can
It's
find
live.
it
Okay.
on our website. It's named Generate Chart Tool.
Okay. I'll need to look for it. I couldn't find it.
It will only do the human design body graph.
Yes, okay.
But you can run all the astrology you want, I believe. Correct, Algus?
Yeah, we released Astrology chart basic. It's live too, but it's not having updates that we did this week with you.
I see.
Is there a choice of house? Is there a choice of house systems? It looked like that was like the equal house, equal sign.
Yes, there is choices in the program for the different house systems.
Do you generally use the equal?
I use the Placidus.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Placidus is my favorite. The Human Design program uses the Aries wheel, the natural wheel. Some other very reliable programs do. The Star Wheel, Thurza Escobar uses the Aries wheel. And when in interdimensional astrology, they use the Placidus, Draconic, and Sidereal as a tri-wheel.
Thank you.
So I'm going to play around a little bit and see if it makes a difference. If we were to use the ascendant in the Bodygraph, it might be interesting to see what it would do, especially in terms of current timing. Because if you're doing an astrology chart for today, for example, I would use my birth chart, my time of my birth date for today. That's one of Katie's tricks. Name.
Yeah, I have more of a logistical question since this workshop was offered to people maybe outside of this community. Could people email you to be able to receive your handout?
Yes.
Or is there a better email address you'd like suggested?
They can use ehp@noblesciences.com. And just in the title, put handout. Because I have so many emails, I unfortunately have missed the couple. So if somebody emails me and I miss it, if you don't hear from me within 48 hours, email me again. I'm usually on top of things the same day. Any other questions? I'll guess anything
Yes,
you
I have
want.
one more. I have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned that, so you're saying that when you say the difference between the Aries versus the ascendant, you're just talking about which particular part of the astrology wheel is on the horizon to the left when you're looking at it. Is that what you mean? Or am I understanding that
Yes,
differently?
but if it's Aries, then we're not using the ascendant.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying because you used those two terms a couple times. I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Algus, is there anything you want me to cover that I haven't covered?
No, I think you everything covered. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Okay.
Dr. Eleanor, there's a question in the chat. I don't know if you have space for it, but the question is, did you mention why you use Chiron? If yes, I'm hoping, oh, never mind. Yeah, it's a question around why you like using Chiron.
I use Chiron because I was intrigued by it to start with. And then when I studied Magi astrology, the Magi astrology people wrote a whole book about why it's important to use Chiron. And what they found was that many gifted people had well-aspected Chiron or many aspects to Chiron. So I began using it. They said some other things in the book that were pretty impressive. So I started using Chiron, and what I found in using it is that it often told me a lot about the consciousness of the person, and it told me not just some gifts that they have or where their consciousness is, but when I use it in conjunction with the North and South Node, it often tells me a lot about their life purpose, and not just intellectual life purpose, but more the energy of the life purpose. And when I look at it in conjunction with the body map, very often people with the 50th gate or the 5027 in the Bodygraph wake up in the morning with a sense of angst, like they have something they need to do and they don't know what it is. So, as Ross said, human design is an experiment. I've been playing with the human design since 1996. And my system is quite expanded from just the basic human design. And I've used it clinically. But what's coded into the body map is very valuable information. And the more depth you go into the intricacies of what's coded into it, the more you're going to see, the more you're going to know, and the more excited you're going to get, because it's unraveling consciousness. And what could be more fun? So, on that note, I think we'll say thank you. I hope you've all benefited. Just let me know, and I'm happy to send you the handout. Take care, everybody. Much love.